After my divorce, I had nothing. Wanting to start over, I had moved out to a crappy apartment in a new city. Had no real job, no pets, no kids, and obviously no wife. No real connections to the rest of the world. I was just existing. I was constantly applying to any job I could find and had landed a shitty job in a shitty cafe serving shitty coffee to shitty people. I was bored and miserable, and despite only recently relocating to another city, I needed a more drastic change. And now, the jackpot has hit. Amidst all those random applications I had submitted was one for a fire lookout in the middle of the woods. No prior experience needed. That's right, a fire lookout. Those people who live isolated in a 70-foot tower in the middle of the woods, looking out for fires and narking on campers. Despite all the weird applications I submitted, I remember filling this one out because I had found it odd as it stated the role was currently filled, but they were accepting applicants in case it suddenly becomes available. I remember thinking, weird, but going for it anyway. And now, I've got the job. I got a phone call from a gruff-sounding man who told me the pay and that I'd be living in the tower until the end of summer, so around 2 months. He also told me it was imperative that I start right away, providing me with directions and informing me that I would be starting tomorrow if I accept, which I did. So, here's to a fresh start. I've just parked my car in the furthest point it could possibly go, and now I'm going to have to hike to the tower. It's just past 8 a.m. and Mark, the guy who gave me the call, said the hike would take about 4 hours. So, I'm setting off now expecting to be there for lunch. Mark assured me there would be a full stock of food at my tower, my new home, and that I'd be able to radio to the nearest tower where I'd receive the lowdown on how everything works. It's a bit chilly for a summer morning, but I'm very excited for the hike, as the woods in these parts are known for their beauty and quiet atmosphere, something I've longed for. I've just arrived at the tower, just past 1 p.m. The hike was challenging, but easy to navigate as it was well signposted and had a clear trail. The tower is much bigger than I thought it'd be. I'd estimate it's around 100 feet tall, with just a hut on top of 4 stilts, a winding staircase around the outside leading up to it. Next to the tower, an outhouse and storage unit, which I'm guessing is where the food is stored. I'll explore later once I get into the hut and set my rucksack down. The stairs were a hell of a climb. Bit tired, but I'll get used to it. The hut is small, has a balcony all around the house. Inside there's a bed, a big radio, a table with a map, some books, a toolbox, a small portable radio, a lamp, binoculars, and a flashlight. The sides of the hut were windows, so from the inside I could see outstretched woods all around me. Creepy, but makes sense as I'm literally keeping an eye out for fires. I set my rucksack down and remembered that Mark had said something about radioing the nearest tower for direction, so I did. "Hello? Is anybody there?" I asked as I fumbled with the big radio. "Hey, you're the new guy, aren't you? I'm Allison," a chirpy woman sounded, replying through the static. "I've been covering your part of the woods whilst you were making the journey here, but can't really see too far into it, so I'm glad you're here." Nice to meet you. Yeah, I'm the new guy Oscar," I radioed back. "Mark said you could give me the lowdown?" "I can. Well, you've already found out how to work the radio, so that's a start. The toilets are at the bottom of the tower, so is the food stock, which gets topped up every week by Mark or his son. As for the actual job, it's a lot of looking around, make sure nobody is camping at night when they shouldn't be, and making sure no fires are started," Allison went on. "Also, making sure the paths are all clear, but it's all in the handbook, which should be on your desk. Give that a read." Thanks, Allison. I'll give that a shot and get back to you," I enthusiastically replied. "I'll radio if I have any questions." No response. Cool. She seems pleasant enough. I reached for the handbook and was flicking through it. It basically said everything she had just told me in just more mumbo-jumbo technical terms. But I'll study it front to back to make sure I do a good job. As I flicked through, a piece of paper fell out of the handbook. It was lined paper which had been handwritten in blue ink. The handwriting was messy, almost frantic. The paper read, "Rules to avoid the smiling lady. 1. If you see a woman in the woods with a manic smile on her face, don't approach her or draw attention to yourself. Return to your tower. 2. If your radio goes off and it's anyone except your closest tower, don't answer it, no matter what you hear. 3. If you hear a woman crying between the hours of 1 a.m. and 4 a.m., ignore it. 4. At night, always sleep with your lamp on. If it starts to flicker, quickly run to turn on the main light until morning. If your lamp flickers off completely before you do this, hide under your bed until morning. 5. At night, if you hear someone running up the stairs to your tower, also turn on the main light until morning. If you don't do this by the time she's at the top, it's too late. 6. If you wake up and see the smiling woman staring at you through the window, hide under your covers and hold your breath. She will come into your hut and you will feel her breathing right above you as if she is hovering over you. Do not breathe. This will only last a few seconds. Once you feel her leave, turn on the main light until morning. 7. If you hear any scratching at any point, either on your hut or by the outhouse, turn off all radios and hide under your covers until the scratching stops. 8. If you are investigating a campfire at night and upon your arrival you hear a woman scream, run back to the tower as fast as you can. 9. If at any point you are returning to your tower and you notice someone else inside it, run. Do not stop running until you reach the next tower. Do not look back. She will be chasing you. What the hell? Is this some sick, creepy joke? I reached for the radio to ask Allison about the weird rules I just found. But, I don't want to be the new guy who fell for the prank and just gets made fun of for being creeped out. So I'm just gonna leave it. Instead, I'll explore the area a bit and finally eat some food and get settled in. "Good night, dude," Allison radioed in just as I was drifting off for the first night. I jolted out of sleep with a fright and hastily radioed back. "Night, Allison. Thanks for the help today." My first day was done. After eating, I had explored the woods and become acquainted with the machete used for clearing paths, which was a great stress relief. I had also read up on some of the laws of the woods and further responsibilities of the job. Allison had popped up occasionally just to check in, but I never brought up the weird rules I found. But now, I was wide awake, probably from the fright I had gotten from the radio she gave, wishing me goodnight. I stood up out of bed and looked around me, seeing nothing but the forest. It was dark and creepy, but the darkness was a good thing. No fires. I knew that at night there were other watchers. Lists were needed as fire is much easier to spot at night, but it was still important that I knew what to do if it was me who spotted one. I was just about to hop back into bed when I heard a scratching noise. That's strange, but it's probably an animal down by the storage box, scratching trying to get in. Jumping into bed, tired after the first day, I reached down to turn my lamp off. Just as I do this, the scratching got faster. It's almost if whatever's making it is getting excited. I move my hand away from my lamp switch and the scratching slows. That's weird. What else is weird is the scratching seems almost methodical. It has a rhythm to it. Suddenly, both my radios started to emit a high-pitched noise. What the fuck? Shitting myself, I hopped out of bed and turned off the portable radio, and just as I was fiddling with the big radio, I caught a glimpse of the list of rules I had seen earlier. There was something about scratching, wasn't there? Ah shit. I'm not the superstitious type, but I'm not taking any chances, so I quickly grabbed the list. Rule 7. If you hear any scratching at any point, either on your hut or outhouse, turn off all radios and hide under the covers until the scratching stops. Fuck. I turned off the big radio and jumped under the covers. What the fuck, man? I could still hear the scratching, but it sounded closer. It sounded like it had gone from being a distant noise to being right out of the wooden door of my hut. It was weak now, as if whatever was making it was likely dragging their fingernails across the door frame. I ain't moving. What the fuck is it? It's the next morning. I had eventually fallen asleep under the covers last night. The scratching had stopped, but I didn't move from my covers at all, eventually letting tiredness take over. Looking back, I feel kind of stupid. I mean, I'm in the woods, and there's a fuck ton of animals and radios which could just pick up all types of feedback. I guess it makes sense that the first night was the hardest, trying to adjust living 100 feet up, alone in the middle of the woods. Oh well, I'm gonna make the most of the day today. I'm sure the rest of the nights will be much less eventful.